Welcome for today's webinar being hosted by NISSMAT. As the president of NISSMAT, let me first of all introduce to you NISSMAT as such. This institution was established in the year 1990, about 3 decades ago, and it started courses on basically security, safety, and applied technology. In view of its specialization in this training, in view of properly defined curricula, in view of methodology followed by NISSMAT, in this particular specialization, NISSMAT attained a position of prominence. With the passage of time, we started courses in loss prevention, risk management, security audits, and team trained by us in these subjects. They did audit of some of the known multinationals of the world, like SQL, like GE, like Flex, like Johnson & Johnson. So these audits done by the team trained by NISSMAT, they attained all popularity and this institution became laudable for training these people. Now, in addition to that, with passage of time, we were asked to organize courses by the Ministry of Defense, Government of India, for the officers and men who were retiring from the army to train them in the private security industry for their second career. Now, in this field also, we conducted a number of courses and were responsible to resettle a number of retired JCOs and NCOs in the private security industry. Now, then we were approached by JNU, Jawaharlal Nehru University, to start courses in fire safety and precautions, fire security and safety. We started those courses. Now, with the time span, we thought of establishing a research cell in this institution. And this research cell, we created simultaneously, along with this research cell, a think tank in various important spectrums and specialization in various competencies. This think tank and this research cell, which we started, has made us aspire to become a well-renowned global training institution with the passage of time. The ultimate idea of our research programs is to find out innovative and new procedures, methods, and results for improving productivity, performance in the relevant spectrums in relevant field. Ladies and gentlemen, while starting these research courses, we have with us a number of erudite scholars who are on our faculty, both in-house faculty as well as on the visiting faculty of the institution. Now, as we all know, that the corporate world is changing with new and faster technologies and redefined sort of values. New demands are being made from the clients, and new expectations are also expected by the employees from us. Now, business landscape is shifting, as you know, at a very rapid pace. Now, earlier in the 19th century, it was a question of talent. Talent meant basically that these people had their intellectual content, they attained, they acquired knowledge, and that talent hunt was there. There was a sort of competition for a talent hunt between the institutions. But these brains, these talents, naturally, wherever they found chance, they went away. So they were sort of nomads going from place to place. With this thing in view, and also in view of the changing scenario, it became very important that we have to train or we have to get results from so-called ordinary people. We have to get results from so-called ordinary people, extraordinary results, so that we do not go on hunting or do not go after these people who are interested only to go from one place to another. The ultimate idea of the research program was to find out procedures. So we thought, let us try what various procedures are to train these people who are not, I mean, normally you use the word extraordinary only for seeming as if, extraordinary is something very, very out of ordinary. The difference is only if you talk in terms of simple English language is extraordinary. And there is hardly one word extra which gives all the importance to this particular webinar which we are going to have. It may be mentioned by me at the very outset that often it is the extraordinary people, it is the ordinary people, I beg your apology, it is the ordinary people which have given results or achieved results, extraordinary results in the world. You name anyone, and you say those people were considered humble, ordinary, but they achieved extraordinary results. So there is no question of saying that there is certain thing which cannot be achieved. Idea is that their inherent talent is there, and we have to take out, unleash that talent so as to get the extraordinary result. These people also have inbuilt qualities. It's a question of hard work. It's a question of dedication. It's a question of consistency, which can make them achieve these extraordinary results. To my mind, some of the important points which can make a man produce extraordinary results are: one, how to transform the mindset and spirit of the human resource at a workplace. You have to change the mindset. You have to change in the workplace that you have got everything and here you are and you will be able to get the extraordinary result. To cultivate in the mind of the so-called ordinary people, I'm using the word so-called, in the so-called ordinary people, that everyone on this planet learned as a baby, initially to crawl, then to stand, then to walk, and finally to run. This will be a sort of mindset created. It's not necessarily that you start running all of a sudden. And secondly, if you're scared of running and you go to this direction of safety, it's a very, very dangerous thing because it is a sort of seduction to safety. All right, we are not going, it's very dangerous to run. So you go to a seduction of safety. But I feel seduction to safety is more dangerous than the uncertain illusion. There may be certain uncertainty in future, but seduction to safety is more dangerous than the uncertain illusion. Let it be. We'll go forward. We'll see. Your mind should be tuned to such a lifelong learner. I mean, you feel as if you're learning all the time you're learning, and ultimately you'll be able to run and have that speed of a champion runner. Now, combination of curiosity, you have to create that curiosity in the mind of the person with humility and kindness from the leader, with work ethics in the business organization, you can achieve definitely extraordinary results from these people. To me, it makes no sense to have knowledgeable people, a knowledgeable staff, a smart staff, and then start teaching them, do this thing, that thing. When you have made them knowledgeable, when you have made them smart, then they are knowledgeable also, then it is not to say, do this thing. Ask them what to do. What should we do? What the organization should do? They'll come up. They'll give you the results. And they shall produce extra result and their hidden talent will get unleashed. Ladies and gentlemen, I must say the management and leadership are a little different. Management may be only confined to achieve objectives, while leadership is there to attain higher accomplishment. And that can a leader can induce. And that is the extraordinary result which a leader has to come. In the webinar today, these speakers who are with us shall discuss how the seemingly ordinary people, I'm using particularly the word seemingly, which is actually not ordinary, how the seemingly ordinary people can produce extraordinary result. We have today with us an army general, a leadership specialist, I'll call him, a motivator. I've heard him many a time, and he is here, Lieutenant General B.S. Sandhu. We also have with us today a corporate leader, a corporate leader from USA, Kasyana Singh, whose mantra of success has been work is worship. So these two speakers are before us, and I'm sure they shall address and deliberate on this subject and make us much wiser as to get how extraordinary result. I have today with me also the CMD of the group, Captain Pawan Ahluwalia. Captain Pawan Ahluwalia, in addition to having the holding company of Premier Field, he has got number of companies, tax codes, Premier Lands, India Scale, a number of companies, and NISSMAT is one of those groups. Now, I have been in association with Captain Ahluwalia for a long time. He is one who believes only in action, 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 and action. All the time he is believing in action. His principle to me seems is that mere knowledge without action is only a dream. He says the knowledge, all right, it's only in the realm of thought process, this sort of knowledge. Once you want to convert this knowledge or this thought process into action, then only you get result. So he is a believer of action. Ikotalia and Malcolm Awadi from the CIA. He has been a chairman of CIA. He is also associated in a big way with the Central Association of Private Security Industry, with the Association of Private Detectives of India, and a number of other organizations. In his case, as I told you, since action is the foundation key to all successes, I will request him to moderate this session and also introduce the speakers. Captain Pawan Ahluwalia, please come forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. President. Before I go ahead, I'd like to sort of acknowledge participation from various countries. We have participants today from India, the United States, Singapore, the United Arab Emirates, Australia, Bangladesh, Bhutan, Canada, France, United Kingdom, Germany, New Zealand, Pakistan, Israel, and Congo. So thank you very much for participating with us. We have in excess of 250 participants as of now watching the live telecast going on YouTube and Facebook simultaneously. I would now take a minute to introduce the president, who so kindly sort of given the opening remarks. Mr. Sipal Singh is a master's in English literature. He has served as the Inspector General of Police in the Indian state of Punjab and later raised the elite rapid action force to deal with communal rights within the country. He was the force's first chief also. He thereafter raised and headed the Internal Security Academy for senior law enforcement officers in India. For his excellence in service, he has been decorated with nearly all the medals that the police can possibly offer. After retirement, he has been recognized by the President of India in 2009 as the Security Personality of the Year. In 2011, he was recognized by the Union Minister of Home. In 2012, by the Governor of Punjab, and in 2018 by the Asian Professional Association. He was involved in writing the curriculum of various skills for the sector skill councils and has been a driving force in the private security industry. He is a well-known face on the Indian national television, as his opinion is very sought after by the media. He is the Director General, Honorary Director General of the Central Association of Private Security Industry and the Private Detectives Association in India. Ladies and gentlemen, this was the President of NISSMAT. I will now introduce Lieutenant General Balbir Sandhu to this August gathering. Lieutenant General Sandhu superannuated from the Indian Army in 2017 after an illustrious service of 40 years. He is only the second Indian officer from the armed forces and from his Army Service Corps to be a Lieutenant General in the South Stream. He's a rare combination of a sportsman and an outstanding general. He has played polo for India and represented his country in matches across the world. He plays golf to a scratch handicap. He currently follows his passion as the Vice President of the Indian Polo Association, advisor to the Equestrian Federation of India, and on the management committee of the Delhi Golf Course, of the Delhi Golf Club. As a soldier, in his last appointment, he was responsible to provide logistic support to the 1.3 million Indian Army. He was ably supported by 70,000 extraordinary officers and men who served him. His logistical support was to areas of Siachen Glacier, to the plains of Punjab, to the deserts in Rajasthan, and the Indian island territories sprung across the Indian Ocean and the Arabian Sea. For his devotion to duty and excellent services, he was honored on 2 occasions by the President of India. He's a master's in philosophy, he's a master's in defense studies, and now he has submitted a thesis for his PhD on peace, security, and economic development. He's a distinguished fellow of the USI and a regular contributor to strategic think tanks on matters of leadership and security. He has been a TEDx speaker on soldiers, sports, and leadership. And now, ladies and gentlemen, he's a NISSMAT speaker. Over to General Balbir Sandhu.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Am I audible, sir? Okay. At the outset, let me thank NISSMAT for finding me worthy of sharing my thoughts with such a fabulous audience across the globe. Thank you very much. I am not a management guru. Post my retirement, I saw there are experts in every field for happiness, for success. So I am none of them. My sole qualification is that I lived army as a way of life for 4 decades, which I value immensely. And the background to that was that I joined a school called Sainik School Kapurthala, from where we never thought of becoming officers. We just wanted to join the National Defense Academy. And once that goal was achieved, there weren't too many distractions in those days. And then we fell onto a track where, for sure, let me assure you, I firmly believed I'm an absolutely ordinary human being. I continue to be one. But the organization felt, because of people who worked with me, that we got extraordinary results. And due to which I've been disproportionately rewarded through my service, including by Pavanjit Aluwalia, who made my handicap as scratch in golf, and by which I'll have to lose a lot of money. But the fact is, such compliments are always welcome, and one can strive to reach those if you haven't been there. So my talk today, since I said I'm not a management guru, is going to be sharing of experiences of mine and the people around me, or my beloved army. And like if you see my total time in uniform, it's at the age of 9 that I joined Sainik School, and with 63 now, so I left the army at 60. So wearing uniform for so many years now, it's almost olive green in your blood. You don't need to wear. So I'm still wearing almost an olive green shirt. So we are in uniform for life, and this is what give us all the knowledge, all the sharing of thoughts that we have. Now, I was also handling a service which had a lot of connect with the corporate world. And at the higher level, while the management has gone to the corporate world from the military, there's no doubt, because the origin was, I think the civil or the society lived in a barter system and in a localized manner. It was the invading armies which had to think of their logistics to move, or the corporate arrangements to move and invade over long distances. And this management of everything went from the military to the corporate. And it's now that it's been repackaged so well and so nicely that military often has to interact with the corporate to learn management, which is a very, very good idea. But I, in the army, strongly believed that instead of living not only on the non-tangibles of being great, probably we could convert our goals into tangibles like the corporate, and assess our assessment. So I have a lot of passion to understand the corporate working and how do they do things. Now the subject today is a really interesting one: getting extraordinary results out of so-called ordinary people. Now let's leave the people aside for a moment. That's a very subjective argument. Like I said, I'm an ordinary man, but the people around me were extraordinary, who made me look extraordinary, right? So let's leave the subjective part of people around for a moment. But one thing we all universally will agree, that every organization wants extraordinary results only. If in the army you've been told to capture a feature on Kargil, nobody cares how many men lose their lives, but the nation, the organization wants it captured. If there's a company, the management wants that balance sheet and profit. They don't care about your words, your presentation, your English. They want output. If I'm running an educational institution, if I'm running a police force, whatever I'm running, nobody wants anything short of extraordinary results. Now, who can get those extraordinary results? There is no doubt. If you have a balanced, motivated, competent team, they can get results, extraordinary results. I recollect in the army, say for the regiment like where Pavan sir has been, you always said, if there's a good unit with good traditions, with good procedures, they can easily carry off one commanding officer who's not so competent a leader, right? So what I'm saying is, if the team is absolutely motivated, competent, and in place, extraordinary results can come in, but not assured. For a while, they can carry a weak leader. But on the other side, if there's a worthwhile leader, a strong leader, he doesn't care what the composition of the team is. Given a reasonable amount of time, that leader will be able to motivate, equip, train that team to get extraordinary results. Otherwise, he is not a leader. He is not a leader. He has to inculcate those leadership skills. And I can tell you a number of examples. They've been in the military history, generals sacked in the thick of the battle, and another person is put in the same team, and he changes the situation altogether. They've been in the corporate world, as we understand. You change certain top hierarchy, and there's a turnaround of profits. So leadership is pivotal to this whole business of getting extraordinary results. I recollect, like I said, you'll have to pardon me. A lot of examples will be those related to my experiences. I was a colonel, and we were in an organization, a big organization. The whole lot of colonels were heading these small teams. And there's a young officer who was posted there who had a bit of a history of being naughty, right? Some disciplinary issues, whatever, which I can comprehend that. So there was a discussion who would take him. And ultimately, most people refused and they asked me. I said, I have no issues. He came to me. I never spoke to him. That person performed extraordinarily well. He was a top class sportsman. And having been a sportsman, you understand the kind of energy level that these sports people have. So you have to channelize them. And after a few months, he tells me, sir, do you know that you never told me, but I've got to know that you are the only one who said, I am ready to accept him. And I think it's a very emotional moment. That person has done some fabulous things at the national level, and he still is in touch with me. And that is why I feel that there are no men, no part of your team, no human resource who's ordinary. They are as extraordinary as you can make them to be. Another experience, I was in a counterinsurgency area. My unit was deployed in 5 states. I was posted with 2 officers. Again, a little naughty background. So their colleagues told me, sir, be careful. They are my colleagues, and they cannot perform in independent detachments. Now, it's all your method. I do not use too many management tools. I use relationships. I use directness. So I called that guy. I said, listen, this is what your colleagues tell me about you. But I don't want to go into the history. But play this game well with me and we'll be friends. I can tell you those people in independent detachments may be the reason. Like I said, people said I got extraordinary results. I did everything, whatever in the army you're supposed to do in terms of courses and appointment. But I always remember that these were the extraordinary people without any history. These boys never went up much in life or whatever the collective career profile, but they made sure that I went up. I progressed in life. So now, having arrived at the thing that the leader is the person who can get consistently an extraordinary result, irrespective of the composition of the team. Obviously, everyone aspires to have a team which is very, very competent and qualified and aspiring, or you tend to build that team by training or whatever. So how do I make this leader? What should be there in this leader? And how does he grow? You can't drop a leader, like a paratrooper to come and get the organization the excellent result. You need to have these leaders growing up. So again, I look back, what have been the thoughts? If you want set piece answers, I think Google gives it very well. I don't Google much because I'm technologically challenged. I can barely go onto a webinar. That's my peak of my competence. So I feel when a person is young in his profession, I'm talking about the leadership position, say, take it that you've done your MBA and you've done your engineering or whatever qualification, and you joined work at a later executive level, the only ambition at that time has to be, you need to be passionate about your job. We were lucky. We were in the military. We came willingly. We don't have choices to change. But in the corporate, if you aren't passionate about your job, you might as well change your stream and change your job. But you have to be passionate about your job. And second thing that I say is build competence. Your only ambition should be, I want to be competent. I want to be the most competent chap. Whether it is physical fitness, whether it is professionalism. So 2 things that you need in a young person to grow is passion about your job. I remember when I was a second lieutenant, I was in Arunachal Pradesh. We were 7, 8 of us were young officers. My commanding officer wanted to ask a volunteer for a long range patrol where you go out for about a few days and you carry about 30, 40 kg weight, including your ammunition and whatever survival. You live in extremely uncomfortable positions. And I volunteered. Next patrol, I again volunteered. Third time, the commanding officer got suspicious. He says, why do you volunteer? There's 7, 8 of them. I said, sir, because I'm here in the unit, I'm the junior-most officer. I got to take orders from everyone. When I go on a long-range patrol, I have 20, 30 men with me and I'm the boss. I give them, instructions, I look after them. And it should be such fun. And now I see my son who's in the corporate. He would probably pay some money for those trekking. I used to make fun out of it. I mean, that was one of the beautiful things. So it was because of passion. And I was posted in a field area. Nowadays, you say, to get my fitness, I need to go to a gym. I was posted in a field area. And our squash courts were about 5 kilometers away. One used to run, play, walk back. So that means 10 kilometers of walking, running. So there was a passion to be fit. I never felt that as an officer, I can be anything less than my Jawan. Likewise in the corporate world. If I am in an IT field, I might not be master, but all those working below me got to know that I know all the jobs that these people below me do. So you have to start loving yourself. When we are young, there's a thing called journal staff pamphlets. I was again in that field area, and I used to keep that pamphlet next to on my bedside table. So friend came, he says, why you kept this? Nobody reads all this. I said, this is something which is our bread and butter. And I said, it's so heavy reading that I read it and I fall off to sleep. And I said, in those 10 minutes, I feel I will retain something for 3 minutes. And if there's ever induction since next to my head, something might go in. And I can assure you, all that paid off later. And I used to see at some stage in life, I said, I don't need to learn more. Whatever is there in my hard disk, that is my brain. So when you're young, you got to build every opportunity you have to grab to build your capability, be it in the job that you're doing in the corporates, or be in the military, be in the police, wherever. Or there are add-ons. There are add-ons in say computer qualification. There are add-ons in management qualification. That is the time, in fact, you are extremely receptive to doing things. And then set very high standards for yourself. I remember I used to do push-ups. Somebody said, how many? I said, till we fall on our nose. And if you had to learn, you had to learn to be better than the people around you, and not be ambitious to go up. That's the stage to build your thing. And even when you're handling your subordinates at that time, you can't talk in generic terms like a prime minister or a general, that you must do all this and make my unit great. No. You got to be very specific in tasking as per the capability of the person, and ask the person, when can you do it? The person will say tomorrow. Say, no, do it day after tomorrow, because you have much more judgment. And you have to grow with that to a level that your subordinates start delivering for you. And then another thing that I see is that at times people tend to be very motivating, trying to give a motivation talk to people, but not give them tangible goals. So this is the time when your management, your team, well, in the army, we go and live in the barracks, and I've seen the corporate world, everyone comes and eats in that canteen. So these are the kind of things which look very ordinary, but which are very important. And this is, like I say, when you are a young person, make yourself so competent. And there's a very famous saying by Iqbal, we say, खुद ही को कर बुलंद इतना कि हर तकदीर से पहले खुदा बंदे से ये खुद पूछे बता तेरी रजा क्या है. Means a person should make himself so competent that even the God comes and asks him, okay, what do you want to do? And in fact, in the context of society or a corporate or a military, you should make yourself so competent that at the time of crisis, your senior feels out of all these guys, he's the one to deliver results. Your subordinates should feel loved to be led by this guy out of these people. And your peers should quietly say, he's the man, to the commanding officer or to the CEO, that he's the person who can do. Set high standard for yourself, but that should not lead you to complacency. I can give you one example. I was a young officer, I was a lieutenant. We were playing polo in Delhi. We won a tournament. And it was a very important tournament with a lot of participation. Maharani Gayatri Devi was the sponsor of the cup. Savai Man Singh Gold was. So she came and gave prizes. It was a big tournament. Same tournament was being held in Mumbai after a month. I was doing a course. I was pulled to be called there with Army headquarters permission. And there were only 4 or 5 teams participating. And we felt that, we'll be on a roll. We'll win this tournament. So we won the first game easy. The second was semi-finals, a weaker team than the first team. So we all said, let's conserve our horses. We'll win in any case. So we shot at their goal at least 12 times, scored once. They came to our goal twice, scored twice. So we lost that game 2-1. So we didn't know which way to look. Since I was a young officer who had gone on duty from there, I was told to catch the evening train. So what was it? It was complacency, and it was overconfidence. For lifetime, whenever at various positions somebody overassured me, sir, that's not a problem, I was very, very careful. So you have to learn to handle setbacks. You have to learn not to be complacent. So this is what as a young executive that you need to know. Now you reach somewhere middle of your career. A leader who reaches, say, in the military as a commanding officer, or in the corporate as head of marketing, head of something, head of operations. This is the time she has to sit back and look at, the things around the person. This is the time that there are a lot of people who are calling you a boss. Your behavior, your conduct can reach right up to the bedrooms of those people. An upset employee is going to go and shout at the children and his wife at home. He's going to be upset. And you, as a middle ranking and a higher leader, has to now start understanding, till now you worked. It was your hierarchy which fitted you into the organization. Now you have reached a stage where your actions make a quantum difference in the output of the organization, in the environment of the organization. This is the time for you to become much more large-hearted. You have to start understanding your subordinates, and you have to think the art of forgiving people. And you certainly, at this stage, do not make your juniors do things which you didn't like. You can't say, we also did it. That's something which really harms. And I'm saying all this out of experience, that this is the time you should give people those things to do which they willingly want to do. And that creating that willingness is in your hand. And you have to remember that you have been appointed in this position by your seniors. It's your business. It's your business to perform in a manner that your subordinates accept you. And I remember when I was a lieutenant, there was a general officer who came and took over as general officer commanding. And I love that demi-official letter he wrote for all of us. He says, you must be wondering, trying to find out what do I do and how am I? He says, I'll make your job simple by laying down my likes, dislikes, how do I operate, what are my values, and which are all very, very simple things. I admired it then, I followed it later, and it was very, very interesting. So because when I became something, I said, I fully understand that I have to become worthy of being accepted by you guys, so that you don't say, I wish Pavanji Taluwalia was my so-and-so. You have to feel that out of all the available guys, this chap is more than acceptable to me. So that's the kind of responsibility. And I think that goes even to your conduct of office hours, your ethics. Where do you drink? Who do you drink with? Who pays and what do you do? Because that's the sense of responsibility. Leadership is not a position to relax. Probably take early retirement and go and have a good time. But when you are in a leadership position, it's a time to perform. It's a time with a lot of responsibility. It's a time for you to build yourself further, so that you don't look for yourself. You don't use subordinates, which some people do. You have to develop subordinates. You have to create win-win situations for them and not a zero-sum game. And you can't say, you chaps didn't do this. It has to be we. We failed and we will succeed. It can't be I and you. These are some of the things that I observed in life, where people felt that they become too big as they went, but nobody is too big. If you see people like Abdul Kalam, if you see people like Narayan Murthy, the higher you go, who more humble they were. There are no better examples to see how humility should come into a leader. And with that behavior, you will always get results. And I would like to end my talk with a very good shabd by Guru Gobind Singh Ji, whom I thought is the greatest of the military leaders ever existed. He said, "Inhi ki kripa se saje hain hum, varna moso crore garib crore pade." But the meaning is that whatever I am as a general, as a soldier, as a leader, it is because of my subordinates. Or otherwise, there are crores of people who can be aspiring to come in this appointment. And I firmly believed in this. I first commanded a unit as a major. I started getting this feeling then. Seniors do not have the ability to do any good to you. It is your subordinates who deliver, and you get an AVSM or a PVSM. It's your subordinates who pray for you. Because the other day, whenever I had to get some important appointment, so my driver tells me that afterwards, after I got that appointment, he said, I had gone to Tirupati to pray for you. Such things are very touching. And your subordinates, loyalty should be to your subordinates first, your peers, and then your seniors. And if you're a worthy leader, your seniors will always understand that that's the correct priority. So as a leader, when you're young, you have to be passionate about your work. You have to build competence. As you grow up, please sit and realize that you become a comparatively bigger leader. Organizations are dependent on you. There are people who want to become CEOs and generals, but they don't mind the organization also growing. There are people who say, my organization must grow. The byproduct should come to me by which I should become a CEO or a general. Imagine how big the organization will grow. So as you go up, it is your subordinates who are worthy to push you up. It is your team and which will make you grow. And you have to be thankful to them. And when you're young, you work. And that is all that I feel is the mantra to getting extraordinary results out of all people. And there are no ordinary people. Everybody is extraordinary as long as the person delivers. To get extraordinary results out of extraordinary people, because your subordinates are always extraordinary, it's you who can be ordinary. Thank you.
Thank you, General Sandhu, for an excellent talk. And I think the number of takeaways of your talk are too many. And now I'd like to introduce the next speaker of the day, Mrs. Kasyana Singh. Some people say she's the Indian jewel in the United States. She's a voracious reader and a prolific writer, with nearly 100 poems being published across various international platforms over the last couple of years. She is also a frequent reader of her poetry at many popular reading events, and you can listen to her by visiting her website. Her vast management experience and unique approach to delivery and operations has won her many accolades through her career across different corporate organizations, and she continues to be well known for her inspirational style of people leadership. Kasyana Singh has 27 years of management experience, with the last 22 years concentrated in client service and operational leadership. She has worked across the length and breadth of delivery in organizations like Hutchison, SIFI, Airtel, Hewitt Associates, and now serves as the Vice President for a multinational professional services organization, Alight Solutions, which is an affiliate of the Blackstone Group. She is based out of Chicago and is proud of her work and with large diverse global teams. She is well known for her inspirational leadership, adaptability, and change management. Kasyana, her one talk was on her life mantra, work as worship. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my proud privilege to introduce the Indian jewel in the United States, Kasyana. Over to you, ma'am.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can.
Okay. All right. Thank you. You didn't, that was not in the prep session, Pavan sir. So that was a little embarrassing to where you went with the jewel introduction, but thank you. I'm humbled. General Sandhu, Mr. Sipal Singh, and Mr. Pavan Ahluwalia, I want to start with saying thank you for your leadership, for your service, and as well as for being inspirational. I'm humbled to be in your presence. General Sandhu, you spoke about your sole qualifications. My sole qualification is simply treating every ordinary day and finding the extraordinary in everyday moments. Pavan Ahluwalia spoke about my poetry. I find ordinary moments and write poetry about ordinary moments, whether it's a meditating squirrel or an autumn leaf. So truly, it's not just in people, but in ordinary moments that I try to find the extraordinary. That's really what I do for a living. My most favorite moment as a leader, if I have to call myself a leader, and yes, I am a lifelong learner, Mr. Sipal Singh, like you mentioned, that is the most important trait of a leader. My most favorite moment of being a leader, or whatever I've done in the number of years of serving, being a servant leader in the corporate world, is when somebody who worked for me came to me and said that she would like to have her baby be born on the same day as my birth date and name her baby after me. There hasn't been a more rewarding moment than that, because I felt that she had been inspired in some way by what she'd learned from me, that she wanted to make sure she was able to remember me through her child, right? So that's been the most inspiring moment for me personally, and to what you said, General Sandhu, we get inspired by those who work with us and alongside us, right? And I always talk of leadership as vulnerable leadership and servant leadership. And you ended with Guru Gobind Singh's quote, and what better example of servant leadership than Guru Gobind Singh himself. So let's jump in with that. I have a few slides to share. I'm going to pull this up, and let me know if you can see my screen in a moment. Just give me a second. I'm going to try and share. Let's see. Let's hope this works. Give me 1 second. Bear with me. Okay, can you see my screen?
Yes, we can
Oh,
see
yeah.
the screen.
Okay, perfect. All right. So as I said, there is really, as everybody's been saying, right? Mr. Sipal Singh started by saying there is the extra in the ordinary that makes extraordinary. And like I said, it's the ordinary moments that make extraordinary people. And General Sandhu, you said that multiple times all across your examples. What I'd like to really jump into is give the example of somebody called Marcus Aurelius, and I'm sure General Sandhu, that's been somebody you've heard about, spoken about, read about all through your career. Meditations is one of his readings. He's a Roman emperor, for those of you who don't know about him. He's known as one of the last famously coined 5 good emperors, and his collection of writings is called Meditations, that many a military leader, many a military leader, many a boardroom leader carry it in their rucksack to the army, to the field. And what he really said was that leadership's responsibility is to work intelligently with what is given and not waste time fantasizing about a world of flawless people and perfect choices, right? And that's what we've all been saying all across, like what you said, General Sandhu, there is no perfect people, there is no perfect situations. You make the best of what you have and then make sure you derive out of that. I want to make sure we talk about three things here and crystallize everything that you just heard, both from Mr. Sipal Singh, from Mr. Ahluwalia and General Sandhu. A couple of things, the leadership paradigm. This is something, again, gleaning from my own experiences. Somebody said to me long, long ago, and they said, leadership is really not a business position. It is a human responsibility. It's a social achievement, and it just happens to be a business placement. Leadership is not a position, right? I think Mr. Sipal Singh started by saying that leadership, there's a difference between being a leader and a manager. Yes, there is a difference between being a leader and a manager, because leadership is an attribute, manager is a position. And leadership just happens to position you in a business situation. And yes, corporations happen to be places where leaders have the ability to grow and develop, but the leadership can happen in homes. A mother is a leader in the first place. A mother is probably the most important leader in our lives. We don't recognize that very often, but that's where leadership starts happening in our lives. And then it happens all across various environments. It's just that leadership is more of an attribute, and then it's a social achievement. And most importantly, it's a human responsibility. The second thing I want to talk about is just the curse of leadership. And the curse of leadership comes by what General Sandhu, you said, which is expectations. It is super important to have expectations, right? And you spoke about you wanting to incorporate what you learned from the corporate world. And by the way, you're giving too much credit to corporates. I don't know what we do well or don't do well in the corporate world. There's mostly things we don't do well than do well. So it all comes down to people, right? What people do well and don't do well. It's not the institutions. And the one most important thing really is expectation setting. And expectations are a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? When you commit yourself to expectations that are achieving nothing but results, then you are continually making sure that you reset the bar for the people who work alongside you. Or let me put it the other way, for those who you work alongside. And I think that's important. You have to remind yourself as a leader that you are working alongside a team of people to achieve the results. It's not the other way around. It's not the other way around that people are working for you to achieve your results. You are working alongside people. And how do you reset the expectations to make sure there's crystal clarity on direction? And then again, when we say expectations, it's super important, whether it's the corporate world, the military world, it's home, it's a student, it's a child. It is what's the short-term expectations? What's the long-term expectations? What does the next 1 hour look like? What's the next 1 week look like? What's the next 1 year look like? That's super important to clarify. The other thing, you ended with this again, and by the way, for anybody who's listening, General Sandhu and I did not prepare this together. This just explains why leadership attributes and traits all merge and morph together. Whichever institute, whichever area, whichever arena you talk about, right? Whether it's sports, the military, the corporate, country, diversity, culture, they all come together because ultimately the nascent attributes are all the same. Deep relationships. You have to champion deep human relationships when you lead people. There is no second choice. There is no shortcut to it. And that is hard work. That's hard work every day, because when you're doing it in a corporate world, let's just talk of corporates, I or any other leader has to develop those relationships. And these are the very relationships where you may be coming and having also very hard performance conversations, where you actually may be laying off people the next morning. You may be having to sit across a team of people and lay off 500 people. You may be shutting down businesses because ultimately you're also the messenger and the harbinger of the corporate profits, right? So it's the balance of relationships and the credibility to be able to look people in the eye about what you bring to the table, and be able to drive results with credibility. I always say this, dogs and your team can see through credibility. So dogs understand when you walk into the house and somebody has a dog, they know whether you're a thief or you're an honest person. Similarly, your team understands whether you are a credible person or you're not a credible person. They can smell it in a minute, and that happens with relationships. And then the last piece is deep processes. It's funny, right? Expectation setting is a leadership trait, relationship is a personal trait, and then you'll say you're coming to process, which is like a management trait, but it is super important because the process piece of it helps sustain the other two. If you don't have the process, the relationship piece and the expectation piece will not get sustained. And it's a cyclical process. It is not linear. It's not, you cannot do 1 and 2 and not do 3. You have to plow through all 3 and keep doing it consistently all the time. The third piece I want to jump to is the leadership mandate. And I think this is, again, super critical, which is leading by example. And we heard many examples, so I won't go into this through General Sandhu's update. By being vulnerable, you can talk of this as humility in leadership. You can talk of this as by being vulnerable in leadership. I think the vulnerability in leadership goes a little bit beyond being humble in leadership, because you have to be vulnerable in being able to stand up in front of your team, people you work alongside, and say, I do not know. And it's hard for many leaders to say, I do not know. But when you say, I do not know, or I need to learn from you, you are creating the trust. And trust, as we all know, is a super critical aspect of building leadership and building team and creating extraordinary results with ordinary moments. Again, there are no extraordinary ordinary people. And then by saying sorry, because you will mess up. There is no question about it that there will be mess ups that happen. There will be mistakes that occur. And how are you able to walk in and say sorry, both on behalf of the mess up that you created and what your team created? General Sandhu, again, I'll come back to your example of failing or losing that match that you went to Mumbai for. How are you able to, as a leader, take ownership and say sorry if for a poor decision, for a poor outcome, right? For a poor training, for a poor combination of team that came together, being able to stand up and saying sorry. And I'm intentionally distinguishing being vulnerable. That's a personal trait. That's opening your vulnerability personally, and saying sorry, which is more a team aspect and a team trait to saying sorry. And then jumping on to the leadership traits, therefore, which is what we were just talking about, communicate, communicate, communicate. And I could put this 20 times and it will still not be enough. We've heard this multiple times. You've probably seen this, read this, written this. I personally believe in this a lot. There is nothing called over communication in leadership. There is absolutely nothing called over communicate. You need to communicate, then open the door and communicate again, then open the door and communicate again, because different people consume what you communicate differently. So everything we spoke about in the prior pieces tell us, if you have deep relationships, you will understand which aspects of your organization will consume information in which ways, and therefore you will adjust your communication accordingly. But there is nothing called, I communicated, I sent an email about this information and I'm done. I spoke to this person once and told this person, and I think that person understood and I'm done. There is nothing like that. You have to continually adjust. You have to check for understanding. You have to make sure that the other person understands and then digests and then recaps what you said, and then you have to re-communicate again. The second, trust and is trusted. The two things are super important. A, you trust your team. So you set expectations, you provide guidance, you create a team, you lead alongside, you are vulnerable, and then you trust, you allow for failure. You allow for you lead up to the edge of the precipice, and you know when you're standing right behind that person's, you have his back, as they say, right? I'm sure you've used that term many, many times, General Sandhu, right? Like you have their back, but you let the person go up to the edge of the precipice. You let the team go up to the edge of the precipice, because you have to let the person experience the thrill. You're not going to control that. Otherwise, you are not going to be a good leader. So you trust, but you are trusted that that person feels you have his back, that you're going to be there for that person when that opportunity arises or when the situation arises for failure. And then the third piece is selflessly relentless and relentlessly selfless. And I think you mentioned this again. You're not working for the self, you're working for a bigger cause. And the bigger cause doesn't have to be, oh, I'm an activist fighting racism, or fighting a diverse cause in the world, or I'm going to solve for global hunger, or I'm going to fight for terrorism. I'm sorry, like there are people on this panel who actually have done that. So it sounds odd saying that, but not everybody in the world is there to solve for larger, bigger causes. But you can still be selfless and have a bigger cause than your own salary coming home every paycheck, right? So what's the bigger cause? What's the bigger purpose you can create? And then are you relentless? Can you show up to work every morning after having a shitty day the prior day, after having given up things the day before? Are you going to show up the next morning and not show up demonstrating the weaknesses that you feel yourself, right? So both the things, selflessly relentless and relentlessly selfless, are super important. And then continuing down the path, I think I was just elaborating on communicating. And actually, this is important. Cautiously communicate. So going back to Marcus Aurelius and the Greek leadership, the one thing that the Greeks, if you go and study Greeks and Stoicism and what Caesar, if you study Caesar, he was told by his teachers, whenever you feel angry, Caesar, don't do anything, don't say anything, repeat the 24 letters of the alphabet to yourself before you utter anything or say anything. So yes, communication is important, but being cautious is important, because as a leader, you cannot undo what you say, and you cannot undo what you do. And people depend on what you say and what you do. So going again, I'm going to connect the dots back to what Mr. Sandhu said. General Sandhu said, you never stop being a leader. A leader is not a position. You don't walk out of the door of your office in the evening, and these days there is no door, right? You're working from home all the time. So you don't unpack and wind up in the evening and say, okay, I'm now done being a leader. You are a leader 24/7. At all points in time. So whatever you say, whatever you communicate, you need to make sure you're watching and you're applying the caution. Trust, and then that creates followers. Again, I think we all understand that. Selflessly, not self-serving, super important. We know, we've all lived it, whether it's political leadership, whether it's national leadership. I can go on, I think we all can go on there for probably the entire panel would love to talk about that, but let's not open up that topic right now at this moment. We know what selfless versus self-leadership is. The temptation is to believe we are everything, and it's important to not. It's important that we don't become immune to our own flaws, and that our team and people who look at us don't start following that, because it is easy, right? It is easy for that to happen. And then we've already said, there is nothing called, and this has become a recent in all MBA lessons, and again, I have my own opinions about what MBA teaches or does not teach, but that's for a different training session that Mr. Pavan Ahluwalia, maybe that's a different topic we can have at some point, but there is nothing called failure. It's all about opportunity, right? Every failure is an opportunity to what you can do differently. And then I think that I'll end almost by saying it's rinse, repeat, rinse, repeat. How do you keep on? There is no magical answer. It's a relentless, tireless, boring job. Leadership is the most boring job in the world because you have to get up each morning and repeat ordinary moments. You have to take the ordinary moments, find the inspiration first for yourself in them, learn how to show up each morning in a way that you will find a bigger purpose and a bigger cause to be able to create the extraordinary moments for those around you and drive something that creates a personal passion. The corporate piece, the bigger cause, the activism, driving better results for the world, driving better results for whatever your corporate mission is, whatever the military, you don't fight wars every day. Every day, the army is not fighting a war. Every day, the army is just digging holes and showing up and polishing. But so how do you create motivation for people? Every day is what a good leader does well. And every day is all about ordinary moments. It isn't about extraordinary moments. Neither is it about extraordinary people. That's what I had. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kasyana. I think it's a wonderful talk that you've given, and it correlates with the military, and it resonates with the armed forces in many ways. I have a couple of questions which have been sent by the audience. And one of the questions is, what makes a great company, people or objectives?
People.
And would you like to elaborate why and how?
Well, I think I just did, right, in everything that I just said. So I think it's people supported by clear objectives, and I'd love for General Sandhu to chime in as well. It's a great company is driven by people. You can have objectives. Objectives change. They need to change, and it is people who understand how the objectives need to be modified based on changing circumstances. So objectives can be written in stones. We know we've had companies in the traditional way where you had mission, vision statements written and carved in stone and on walls of companies and in marble, but those objectives haven't taken the brick and mortar companies very, very much far, right? We've had to modify, we know we've had to change, and it's really the people with the right vision, with the lifelong learners and the leaders who've either taken this company to new innovation, modified and adjusted what their future needs to be. So to my opinion, it's the people, both are important, but to me, it's the people who drive the objectives, change the objectives, adjust the objectives, and make the objectives clear in terms of what needs to be taken forward. I'd love to hear General Sandhu's point of view as well.
General Sandhu, what do you feel about this? What makes a company great? People or objectives? We can't hear you. We cannot hear you, General Sandhu.
You need to unmute.
Okay, can you hear, sir?
Yeah,
Right. Actually, any output, any greatness, any output, be it the military or the corporate or any organization, the organization is an organic whole. People, absolutely important, but people without a leadership to guide them are certainly not going to be productive. So it's the cohesive whole, or it's the organic whole, which is a composition of people and leadership, which can get us extraordinary results. So I think it'll be very unfair to choose one or the other. I don't know whether I said it in my talk. It has to be a win-win organization, a win-win situation always in life. So it's the cumulative total of, you can't have one limb and a heart and no legs. So the composite whole of leadership at every level. So the people and the leader are important for an organization.
So which means that goal setting is necessary to obtain extraordinary results. What would you say to this statement?
Absolutely. You got to don't do overnight goal setting. You have to do your assessment, make sure, enable your team by building in skills and capabilities, and then set the goal so that there's a sense of achievement. So goal setting has to be realistic, and you set goals which must be achieved at all costs, and then only can you have output out of goal setting.
I'll just add to the goal setting, Mr. Ahluwalia, that you know that the world's changing, and both goal setting and goal review is becoming a lifetime 24/7, 12-month process. It no longer is an annual process. In most corporates are shifting to a 12-month, almost like some corporates are shifting to weekly, bi-weekly goal setting process. That's how dynamic the world of goal setting has become, right? Because the world around us is changing. The world of setting annual goals and annual performance reviews is a thing of the past. So yes, goal setting is important, but I would like to make sure we understand that reviewing goals and adjusting goals is equally and as important as well.
So just the goal setting stays, say, periodical. It could be our annual or a vision document for a certain time. And I would call all these weekly and monthly things as reviews. And if I have to do that, I will review them a little more conservatively so that I have enough cushion to ultimately achieve the final goal. So that'll be a good way to achieve goals.
I have another question that's come up, and it appears more towards the general. They say, what are the lessons that you learned from being a good sportsman, which you applied to your leadership style?
You know, sir, my TEDx talk was where my heart spoke. It was soldiering, sports, and leadership. And soldiering is not about uniform, not about a police or army uniform. It's about a certain quality which every human being has. So when we go to school, we wear uniform, we cheer for our house, we cheer for our school, not only in a sporting competition, even for debates. So I call that as a universal concept of soldiering. And likewise, it's not the level at which you play a sport. A good organization, even at an elementary level, can create that sporting spirit where you pick up the values of fair play, team spirit, handling a setback, not getting overjoyous about victory and absorbing it. So sports are the greatest contribution towards sporting spirit. Hitting a six or scoring a goal is as much for a Kohli or a Dhoni as it is for a guy who's playing for a school team. So the sporting spirit is the bedrock of leadership. And that is why if you see most of the academies, military academies, good colleges, the police academy and the civil services academy have sports as a element to train people. And in fact, I'm in the process of writing a book, Leadership from the Horse's Mouth. Equestrian training or training with the horses is one of the best way to teach leadership, because there are two elements involved. There's a horse and you, and there's a performance. And either one of you, so sports are absolutely included as a basic element for good leaders. That's all I would say.
Another question that I have from the sports arena, that is, there are individual sports and there are team sports. So what is the learning that each different sport brings to the corporate table?
So what I would say is like I said, between the leaders and the led and the team and the leaders, likewise, I think I would like to see what do I get from one. It's not about, yes, there is a difference, a lot of difference between what you get from a team game and what you get from an individual game. Okay, an individual game, it brings you the aspect of hard work. It brings you an aspect of accountability. You can't blame anybody else. It is you who will be told that you lost a game of, say, squash 9-0 or 9-1, right? So individual sports have this more aspect of hard work, of accountability, of looking for the setting and achieving goals. Whereas in a team game, there are certain other things that like team spirit and standing with each other that you learn. But both of them teach something. But I won't say there's too much of, there is a difference between individual and team sports, but they both complement each other and they have certain elements of leadership which you learn. And also, sir, it's not that sports is the only way to become a leader. You can become a great leader without sports as well, but a sporting spirit and sports certainly add to your, enable you to be a better leader for sure.
And if I may just add, leadership is both an individual and a team sport. That's the beauty of leadership. You can't choose one. You have to take the attributes from both individual and team sports in being a good leader.
I got time for just one more question, and I got about 20 of them here with me, but I just choose one. There's a question which says, do you agree with the statement that a weed is just a flower growing in the wrong place? What are your views on it?
I think Kasyana should be better.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. A weed is just a flower growing in the wrong place. Absolutely. We all know that most of the herbs and the medicines come from weeds, right? Weeds gives us a lot of the medicines and the herbs that help heal. A lot of the healing medicines come from weeds. So whether you call it a flower or not is fine. I mean, I don't think that was the spirit of the question. The spirit of the question is a weed a good thing or a bad thing? And I think a weed is just about how you extract what you need to extract from the weed. And it all goes back to ordinary moments and what you can take from ordinary moments and create extraordinary situations out of extraordinary
I think
moments.
the question from the person who sent the question, it appears that he is looking at a wrong person in the team. So I think, Sipal sir, this is the, I don't think we have time for any more, and I'd hand the webinar back to you, sir, to take it forward. You got to unmute yourself.
Hello.
Yeah.
Am I audible now?
Yeah, you are.
Audible?
Yes, yes.
So, by far, there are two things which I need to emphasize on what the speakers have said. First of all, as far as the army leadership is concerned, as far as General Sandhu has said, and it is also the management gurus, they say. You have not to consider as a leader I. When the question I comes, then you become arrogant. It has to be we. Where the I come, that is one point, and he has emphasized, General Sandhu, as to how they have to take the people along. Second part, which was my thesis at one time, is role effectiveness at every stage. Role effectiveness in an organization. It will be top leader, it will be middle level, it will be lower level. Every leader has to have its own effective role to play. And the top leadership has to ensure that role effectiveness is there in an organization to get extraordinary results. The third point, which Kasyana has emphasized at length, that is communication. As all of us know, communication is not what you are communicating. Communication is what the recipient is getting. That is why you have to communicate again and again so that the recipient gets what you want to take. In transactional analysis, it is said in management that you hook on to the ego state of somebody else as a course. That if you want to carry people, if you want to transact with the people, if you want to be amiable to get the results from people, you have to go into the ego state of that person. Every individual has an ego state. I'm not going to get into the thesis of PAC and transactional analysis. Parent, adult, and child, every individual has. No, it is a question of the individual's ego state to be hooked by the leader. And then you are able to communicate. Then you are having amicable relationship. Even in domestic relationship between wife and husband, there is a question of ego state. Your wife is there, sleeping. In the morning, you get up, you say, honey, give me a cup of tea. She is sleeping. She says, go to hell. Why don't you give me a cup of tea? No, you have not been able to hook into her state of. If you say, honey, I am feeling tired, I am feeling exhausted, can we have a cup of tea? She says, yes, I'll make a tea for you. Question is how you communicate and how you are able to hook on the ego state. So this is basically communication. My last mission is that the leadership, a flawed leadership, the characters of a flawed leadership is nuisance. If the leadership is flawed, if leadership is aiming very dexterously at a deceit, the person will come to know that it has to be very ethical leadership, has to be very, then you are able to motivate people. So there has to be a leadership which is unflawed leadership. Not everyone is unflawed, but to the maximum extent, it has to be unflawed leadership. Then you are able to get extraordinary results from the people. So all these submissions are out of the speakers, what they have said. And I definitely want to say that at least we have, both of us and other audience must have learned a lot. And we are indeed extremely thankful to these two leaders, that is the corporate leader and the army leader, for having shared their experiences well and having given us the jewels of their wisdom. I thank all the audience and everyone here who have come to this webinar and have supported this work. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you.
I'd just like to add here that the next NISSMAT series webinar is on the 9th of October, and it is going to be dealing with social media, whether it's a boon or a curse. So that's on the 9th of October, same time. And the speakers are hugely successful individuals in this field. Manoj Bajaj and Dr. Pawan Dugal. One is a lawyer and the other is a social media exponent. I'd like to thank everyone once again for the wonderful session that we've had from both the speakers. And Sipal sir, thank you very much for your leadership to this. Thank you very much.
Thank you.